Shabbat Shalom. This week, Rabbi Adina Allen, a teacher of mine and the founder of the Jewish Studio Project, asked a question of all of her students. She said, "We have wrapped up the high holiday season," so good job, us, "and with it we transition from the acts of reflection and prayer and endless possibilities right back into our regular, everyday, rocky lives. And we're trying to figure out," she said, how we can make it possible, all of this dreaming that we've done over the high holiday season. Where do we even begin? How do we find the courage to translate our dreams into reality? Oh, Rabbi Adina Allen, like so many rabbis before her, she answers her own question. She taught that we can look at the very opening verses of our Torah this week. And if you still have the red book in front of you, I'm going to be looking at page 3, which is the very beginning of the Torah. She says we can look at the very first sentence of the Torah in order to draw forth a spiritual blueprint for dreaming up new possibilities within this world. Oh, those very first words of the Torah are Breshit bara Elohim. In the beginning, God created. Rabbi Allen urges us to draw our attention to God's very first action. God's first action in this grand myth narrative is the act of creating. The Torah does not open with grand ideas about God's wisdom or strength or character. Instead, the Torah begins and our story begins with the idea of God as artist, weaver, dreamer, creator. From this opening, Rabbi Allen teaches that we can learn a little bit about who we are as people and how to navigate this world and this universe from a spiritual lens. She teaches that this beginning of Breshit, this beginning of Genesis, is an invitation to us to emulate God, to also be creators, to also be creating. Rabbi Allen gets this teaching from just a few sentences later. I believe it's verse 26, where it says that we have been created, humans have been created, B'Tselem Elohim, that we have been created in the image of God. If the very first thing that God does is create, Breshit bara Elohim, and the way that we have been created to be in the image of God, then surely us too, every human on earth, is destined to be a creator. Rabbi Allen teaches that from being created in the divine image, we have a foundational truth, that human beings are created creative. Through this idea of being created creative, we have a limitless well of divinity to draw upon in creating a new tomorrow. Our B'Tselem Elohimness, the fact that we're created in God's image, can give us the courage to always embrace creativity, to never be afraid of creating something new, whether it be big or small. That might be different things for each of us. We might turn towards the visual arts or cooking or gardening or music. All of these are ways of being creative. But ultimately, this act of dreaming and being creative can lead us to think up new pathways for building a kinder and more just world. I recognize that there are obstacles in our way from recognizing our inner divinity, our inner wellspring of creativity. Being creative in this world is sometimes seen as a task for a select few. As children, though, we were less afraid to be creators. We were less afraid to dream. As children, we did not know good art from bad art. We did not know that there could be limits to making within this world. We just knew that it was satisfaction to fill a page with wild color, to create something where there was nothing. And we would make our mark on the walls and on the tables of our homes. And there was wonder in that act of being small, childlike artists, feeling the jolt of our own possibilities. As children, we're allowed to be creators, and Rabbi Allen encourages us to not let that sense of self die within us. She recognizes that somewhere along the way, creating has been funneled into a specific track for the so-called talented. The rewards for just scribbling or filling in a page with color diminish socially as we get older and approach adulthood. Art making and being a creator is seen as being something extra in life, outside of the responsibilities and demands of adulthood. We might tell ourselves plenty of perfectly fine excuses. We might say, I'm just not that good. I can't even draw a straight line. And then with that, art and everything that we consume, art becomes something that we only consume, be it in museums or on social media, and it's no longer part of our spiritual mode of being. We, in a very broad, very general way, we stop thinking about ourselves as artists and makers and creators. I've noticed, though, a curious thing in my own life. Despite spending so much time with Talmud and Judaism, that there are times when I find that I need to turn back to art. I need to turn back to creating. Now, many times over the years, I felt that the only way that I could respond to a section of Torah or to a difficult spiritual moment was through art making, was through being creative. And I would use colors beyond words and beyond form to create abstract art. When I look back at what I have created in response to my own spiritual quest, in response to the Torah, I'm sometimes shocked that these images and colors came from my very hands. How could they be so gorgeous and raw? And sometimes I also feel embarrassed about people seeing them and seeing that there's no real technical skill. All of these acts of art, these acts of creation, though, I know that they connect me to God and to my own sense of spirituality. Many years ago, I started studying with Rabbi Adina Allen and her Jewish Studio project. You too can study with her online. And she's very insistent that all of us, and for all of us, to create is a religious, devotional, spiritual act. Just as at the beginning of the Torah, God is the original artist, the original creator, when we as humans are created, we have been made in this divine image, B'Tselem Elohim. Just as God is, so are we. Just as God creates, so do we. Rabbi Allen has devoted her entire rabbinate to helping people tap into this core artistic nature within ourselves. The Hasidic master, the Sfat Emet, writes that each of us are animated by an inner chayut, an inner divine life force. Perhaps it is through our creative acts that we can more clearly sense that chayut, that inner life force. Perhaps it is that creating can help us tap into our inner God spark and our inner divinity. So how do we begin this year? So full of new dreams. How do we find the courage to translate those dreams into a reality? Perhaps the first step is to allow ourselves to create like children, whether to dance with abandon, or to fill pages or canvases with color, and just be delighted with that God gift that we have within us. We have been created to be creative, and there's no wrong way to create. Ultimately, Rabbi Allen urges us to be brave. She writes that in a world in need of being healed, shifted, and reimagined, our creativity is our greatest tool and our deepest power for this task. We are creators, created, creative. It is at the core of what it means to be human. May the wellspring of vital energy, that chayut, that swirls within each and every one of us, help us to transform our world for the better. Shabbat shalom.